Welcome back, everyone. Norm Jones, Brigham Young University, and we are continuing our discussion of if statements in this video. And in this case, we've come up with a little bit different scenario to provide kind of a context or a use case here. And the scenario that we're going to assume here is that someone is determining if they are eligible to take the professional engineer exam. And a lot of our examples in this sequence are in the context of civil engineering. And to become a licensed professional engineer in civil engineering, you have to pass the fundamentals of engineering exam, which one typically takes upon completing a bachelor's degree in civil engineering. And then you have to have 4 years or more of work experience under the direction of a licensed professional engineer. And if those two conditions are met, you are eligible to take the professional engineer exam, the PE exam, and then become licensed. Now, just to make things a little more interesting, we've thrown in this extra condition that if you graduated from the University of Utah, then we're not going to let you take the exam. This is just for fun. University of Utah has historically been our rivals here at BYU, so just threw that one in for fun. All right, so how are we going to do this? First of all, we're going to write VB code for the Do I Qualify button, and we're going to check the status of these two option controls. We're going to read from cell B6 and determine the years of work experience. Then we're going to check the status of this option control. And then if the person qualifies, we are going to go right down here to cell B13 and say either yes, you qualify, or sorry, keep trying. And then later in part B, we're going to provide a list of reasons if the person doesn't qualify. But we'll get to that in a minute. Let's focus on part A. And first of all, let's go into the Developer tab. I'm going to turn on the Properties window. Let me resize that a little bit. There we go. And if I click on this option control in design mode, then I can see that this particular control has been called OPT-FE-Yes, OPT-FE-Yes. This is OPT-FE No. This is called CHK-UTGRAD, UTE, and of course this is cell B6, also has been named years, and so we should have everything we need down here. This is cell B13, it's also been named result. So with that, now that we're in design mode, we're going to double click on this Do I Qualify button, pop over here, and let's see, we might end up using some variables, so we're going to type option explicit right here. And we're going to start out by doing this with one big hairy if statement. Now, by the way, this is one of those exercises that you could solve a number of different ways. That's one of the fun things about if statements is there are different ways to configure them and still get the same logic. And we're going to start out by putting this all in one big compound conditional expression. So we're going to say if OPT-FE yes, so and we can say dot value equals true. So that's our first condition. If the user has selected the yes button, the yes option control. And range, we'll say years is greater than or equal to 4. And let's see, CHK-UTGRAD.value equals false. Then range result equals congrats, you qualify. else. Now let's see, I'm just going to copy that line, paste it in here, put sorry, you do not qualify, and wrap this up with an end if. So what we have here, again, is what we call a compound conditional expression. First of all, it evaluates this expression if opt_fes.value equals true. But then it appends that with an additional conditional expression using the AND operator, and range years greater than or equal to 4. So these two parts are evaluated first, and if both of those two conditional expressions are true, then the compound expression is true. If either one of those is false, then it's false. Then the result of that is combined with the third conditional expression, the result of the third conditional expression, and everything has to be true. So all three parts have to be true, but it's important to know that if you want to put some parentheses in here, this is kind of the order in which it would be evaluated. This one, and then this one, and then those two combined, and then finally the result of that would be checked with the result of this expression. And if everything ends up being true, then we're going to write congrats, you qualify to the result cell. Otherwise, we're going to write sorry, you do not qualify. So let's give this a shot, and I'm just going to delete these for a second, and let's delete this expression, and here we go. Sorry, you do not qualify. Well, let's see. Not enough years work experience, so let's change that to 5. We still don't qualify. We'll turn that off, and congrats, you qualify. So all three of these conditions are met, and we're good. And if any one of those are not met, then it doesn't work because of the conditional expression. Now I want to go back and show you a couple little tricks. Here we wrote if opt_fes.value equals true. Well, when you're referencing an object, there's always a property of the object which is the default property. And for most controls, the value property is a default property. So we can, if we want to, we can just say if opt_fes equals true, and if chkugrad is false. In other words, if you leave off the value property from when you're referencing these controls, Visual Basic is lenient enough. It says, well, you didn't specify which property, so I'm going to assume you meant the value property. You know, like I've said before, Visual Basic lets you get away with murder, and it makes your code a little simpler and easier to read. And if you go back here, let's put this back at 5, and you know, it still works perfectly now that we've made those changes. I'm going to show you one other little trick. So opt_fes really refers to opt_fes.value, which itself is either true or false. So you don't even need to have this equal true part. If you want to make this really short, you can do something like this. If opt_fes, well, that is either true or false, depending on whether or not its value is true or false. So this particular logical expression is, or this compound conditional expression is logically equivalent to what we just did, and so still works perfectly. There's no change in that logic. Okay. Now, so and I'm a little puzzled here. This should be working. Aha, so this isn't working, and I made a little bit of a mistake here, and I think I know why. Let's go back to the code. This says if chkugrad equals false. I deleted the equal false part, so that is not logically equivalent. But what you can do is you can throw in a not operator in front of this, and not chkugrad means take the value of chkugrad and negate it. And so this is the shortened expression I was looking for. I forgot to put the NOT on there, so let's go back and try that now. All right, so yeah, now it's working. I was a little puzzled there for a second, but so you have some real-time debugging going on. All right, so that satisfies the first part of this. Let's talk about the second part, part B. So for part B, we are going to modify the code so that we have a list of reasons why the person did or did not qualify. And we're going to display the reasons in cell B6, 15, 16, and 17. So for example, if the years of work experience were 3, we would say, you don't have enough work experience, and so forth. So this is going to require an overhaul of our code. Rather than doing a single if statement with or a single compound conditional expression, we're going to need to break this up into different parts. And so because we need to know exactly what the reasons are, and there's a couple ways we can do this. We can leave this part, the qualify or not qualify, and just go forward with that. But then we need to, inside this if statement, we need to provide some reasons why the person did not qualify. So we'll say if not opt, we'll say if opt fe no, then again, which is the same as saying if opt fe no dot value equals true. In other words, if the user selected the fe no control instead of fe yes, or we could say if opt fe yes value equals false, and that would provide the same logic. Then we could say, whoops, put a little line break there, and we can say range B13 equals you did not pass the FE exam as our reason. And then that would be a standalone. We're not going to do an else clause here because the person may not qualify for any combination of reasons. It could be the FE exam, it could be the work experience, it could be the University of Utah thing, or it could be any combination of those. And so this is not an if-else thing. This will be 3 independent if statements. And so our next thing would be if range years is less than 4, then we're going to say range B14 equals you do not have enough experience. Okay, and if, that's an independent if statement. Put a little space between these here, whoops, just to highlight that. And then finally we'll say if chk ute grad value equals true. I'll just make this very explicit. Then range B15 equals you graduated from the wrong school. And if. Alright, let me make sure we got that 15, 16, 17. Did I get that? Nope, I didn't. So we'll say 15, 16, and 17 is where we want our answers. Now, there's one more thing we got to be careful of. Suppose that we ran this once and there are some reasons here, and then the inputs were changed, and the next time the person qualified, we got to make sure those reasons aren't still sitting there. So what we ought to do before we begin this part of the code, before we do anything, we can say range B15 colon B17 dot clear contents. So what this does is it takes that set of cells and we execute the clear contents method, which removes the contents but not the formatting. There's a dot clear method that would remove the formatting, and we don't want that. We want the contents gone. There's also another method that does clear formats, which leaves the contents but removes the formatting. And anyway, in this case, we want to wipe that out so that it's blank. And then if the person qualifies, it's good that we leave it blank. If the person doesn't qualify, we're going to put in a list of reasons why the person does not qualify. So let's go back and save our changes, and now we're going to start picking off some of these reasons here. And we get a list down below of the reasons why the person doesn't qualify. And as you fix those one at a time, that list is changed. And let's see, put this up to 5. And there we go, it works great. Now if we want to make this a little more user-friendly, for example, in this case, the second two things result in a disqualification, but it leaves an empty line up here. It'd be kind of nice to have this be a little bit smarter so that the reasons were always listed starting on row 15 and with no gaps. For example, we could do something like this, and the way we do it now, you get a gap. It'd be nice if these are all just listed sequentially at 15 without a gap. And there's actually a simple way to do that. We're going to go back here, and to do that, we are going to declare a new variable up here. Say dim myRow as integer, and this will be what we're going to do here is we get down to this part of the code, we're going to say myRow equals 15. So we're going to say the next empty row where we can write a reason is row 15. So this myRow variable is going to keep track of the next available empty row. And then down here, instead of writing range B15, we're going to write cells myRow, comma, I think it's in column 2. Let's see. Yep, column 2. And then we're going to say myRow equals myRow plus 1. So in other words, whenever we find a reason why the person doesn't qualify, we are going to write that reason to the cell indicated by the myRow variable in column 2, and then we're going to increment the myRow variable so that it's then pointing at the next row and available, the next time we may want to do this. And so here I'm going to copy this down here and paste, just using the Control-C, Control-V, and then I'm going to copy this row and paste it right here. And then copy that one more time, and there we are. Actually, we don't necessarily need to increment it on the last case because we're done, but yeah, we'll leave it there for symmetry. Alright, so now let's review this one more time. So again, we have this variable that keeps track of the next available row, and it's going to start out on row 15. So when we start out, there's going to be nothing here. It's going to say the next available empty row is 15, and then anytime we find a reason, we write the reason to that row using the cells object, and then we increment the row counter to the next row, add 1 to it, so that the next time we find a reason, we can just pop it in there. And now you'll see that everything is no matter which options you pick, they're always neatly tucked up starting in row 15. There's no gaps, there's no spaces. Works like a charm. And that completes this particular exercise.